Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of Equality and Diversity in the Music Industry with Music Industry Insights Worldwide, Volume 2, Episode 2. And today we have Kelly on the show. Hi, Kelly.
Kirsty.
Oh, Kirsty. Sorry.
I'm
Sorry.
good. How are you?
I'm really, really well, thanks. And I really appreciate your time coming on the show. And yeah, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, awesome. I actually I started in the music industry just from basically my career before coming into music and entertainment was in like fashion and beauty. I just doing like digital marketing, like CRM, sort of email marketing and things like that. And I kind of was like, okay, I've got this passion for music and I've got this like skill, that is, seems to be the way that everything's going now, like digital stuff. That's I mean, got even more important in things like the pandemic. But basically like moved into music through doing a master's in music business. And then basically like got into like management and development of artists,
Right.
but like with special focus, like very much on like mental health and protecting artists and inclusion and diversity as much as humanly possible, really. So yeah.
And how long have you been doing that for?
Um, my first role. So when I was studying music business, it was from the end of 2018 to 2019, and alongside that, I was did like an internship for a rock management company. So Raw Power, they're mostly focused on like rock bands, and so I was doing that. So I'd say that was kind of like my first job. So 2019, and then like my first sort of official job was at the end of that year, which was crazy because then it sort of led me into 2020 when everything went to absolute shit. So it was a bit of a crazy time to start getting involved in the music industry, and now we're obviously left in this really sort of turbulent, weird time, across all genres, across live music, across everything, really. So it's one of those. It's been a few turbulent years basically in the industry.
How has that affected you and the way you've had to deal with things?
Is honestly like the first sort of like experience that I had like coming into the music industry, especially like even like studying at uni, was I am not going to get equal opportunities to other people,
Right.
namely men. Just because I just quickly noticed it. I quickly noticed that like they men were getting spoken to more. They seem to be getting taken seriously more. Like um, very much so. Like if they ever sort of piped up with a point or whatever. They get listened to over someone like that identifies as a woman. So I think it's been very strange. So that sort of coupled with the fact that we then went into this global pandemic, and I've always been like after my sort of first job, which was the end of 2019, I worked for like a label management live company, all in one. It was like a bit of a 360 company, and I lost that job at the start of 2020, like literally in March as we were going into lockdown. So it's been a bit crazy, really, because like then I was sort of left to my own devices, and I was like, okay, I'm not part of a company anymore, but what can I do?
Yeah.
And that's when I decided to start my own venture in like management and development, and sort of with that focus as well, of obviously being a bit more inclusive, and and it's like I used honed in on my skills of digital marketing as well, being that everything was online. We didn't have live music anymore. So I was thinking, okay, how can I develop an artist without live shows, basically?
No income.
um,
It's really
yeah.
difficult. How did that affect you personally? Like, how did you manage to cope with that? And did it make you want to give up at times? Does it make you feel less than? Because you see,
Totally.
especially in the rock industry as
Mhm.
such, as a woman, how do you
Yeah, yeah, it's so tough. Like honestly, I'm literally having a very similar existential crisis like at the moment, with like feeling like I always want to give up, and thinking, oh, I've picked a really tough like genre, a really tough scene. Like, you know, it's one of those. It's like you there's always ups and downs, obviously. But yeah, I really struggled. Like, and you know, I don't think there's ever a time when it's just like smooth sailing and, you know, everyone's happy and la di da. Like even right now, you know, I'm on like sort of search for a little bit more work because I work freelance, so I sort of, you know, go in and out of like different companies. You know, and even now it's so tough. It's like, you know, again, it's like maybe you don't get listened to, or unless you know the right person, you don't even get a look in, even though you know you're so fucking capable. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. You're like so capable, and you know you can definitely do this thing, and you know you've got a lot to offer. So yeah, it was just weird, like literally from like the moment I lost that first job that I had to now, it's just been like this constant up and down journey of like being like, what am I doing? Is this all worth it? And also just because as well, like we don't really get paid much. Like, you know, the music industry is not exactly the most you know, like great way to earn a pretty penny. So it's one of those, it's like you have to kind of remind yourself like why you're doing it. And yeah, and just like, you know, doing things like this, like doing things what you do, like it's so like admirable, and it probably makes you feel like so like satisfied. So I think it's like seeing if you can, okay, you're not getting those opportunities handed to you, so what can you do to help like your community? You know, so yeah.
Thank you for recognizing that. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
That's
Going
okay.
back to like musical education, because you've talked about your education, how was that?
Yeah.
Being underrepresented, was that a challenge, and how did that affect you and your career?
Yeah. It's a bit of a weird one, really. So yeah, you know, I felt like it was going to be a bit of a fast track into the music industry. You know, it was a year long masters full time, and it sort of covered every part of the industry, like marketing, live, A&R, that sort of thing. Just, you know, to give you like a whole sort of overview of it. And it was run by a woman, which, you know, is amazing. And I, you know, it's one of those. It was like I managed to get funding just by being from the background that I'm from, which is sort of like working class. Like my parents, you know, they don't earn that much, and so I managed to get funding for the tuition fee,
Um,
which you know, I count myself lucky in this, but obviously one day I've got to pay it back. But yeah, other like opportunity wise, it was then it's the sort of networking and the stuff that comes after that, and like, you know, the stuff that surround the actual course that you're doing. You know, we had a lot of guest speakers in, and you know, a lot of people would, you know, go to different networking events and this and that, and it just became very obvious that, you know, yeah, that like sort of women and like people of color weren't getting taken as seriously as the white boys, you know. And I think that yeah, that just became very apparent. And that wasn't on the sort of education level. I don't think that was more on the, you know, the internships you could get like major labels or, you know, wherever. And obviously, you know, that's the thing that we know is a thing anyway, like the major labels are still nowhere near as diverse as they could be. So yeah, I think education wise, like it is really great to do, and I would honestly recommend, you know, the course to people, you know, if they can afford it. But I know I'm privileged in the sense of, yeah, that I was able to afford it and I was able to have that support, but I know a lot of people aren't. And so I think that would be like something that I would want to change as well, is like, you know, sort of helping people like find out how they can access those opportunities and what they can do. And, you know, I think there's not enough information out there about things like that.
it's a great point, actually. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really great point you make. And looking at some of the stats, out of the
Yeah.
9 major music companies, there was only one female music executive in one of those roles. So that just
Gosh.
goes to show, out of those 9 major labels, so out of the 9 major music companies, sorry, not
Yeah.
even including the labels. So that
Yeah.
just goes to show that, again, we're not doing enough. I think if other people are not going to give us those opportunities, we have to make them ourselves. And I think
100%.
we're becoming more aware of that now. And I think
Yeah.
collaboration as well is really part of it. It's working together with other communities and
Definitely.
more of an impact and a powerful voice. Because I think it's really unfair to see, and like you said, with the
100%.
networking, how do you get treated as a woman? Like going to networking events, sometimes it's a confidence issue. Sometimes you must get sexualized. Sometimes you must get advances. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Definitely. I think like my experience in the industry so far is that, you know, I it's a weird one without using like, you know, quite derogatory language, but basically I think that women still get seen as like fangirls, and we still get seen as like slutty, basically. You know, if we were to, you know, bearing in mind that our whole time and our whole lives are spent in the, you know, in the industry and like doing work and, you know, trying to focus on our careers, obviously the only people we meet are people that are also in the industry, you know. So it kind of, it means that, you know, if you want to date or whatever, if you want to meet people on like a romantic level, you're so afraid of what people are then going to think of you, and like think of, you know, is she worth like giving that job to, because, or because she got with this person that I know, you know. And like I've definitely experienced that. I've experienced the fact that, you know, even just like being, you know, being a woman and meeting a guy and like maybe talking to them or whatever, that then other men in the industry are like, you know, blah blah blah. But that doesn't make me any less like good at what I do. But that's still a very much like, you know, the whole like way that I think women get seen in the industry. Like they just don't get taken as seriously. It's like, why should we be called like, you know, like a female this and female that? And, you know, I hate that people still do that as well, you know, like female fronted band and female marketer. And I was like, what? Like, I'm just doing my job, you know.
Human.
Um, so yeah, I've definitely been, and I haven't been taking like seriously a number of times. Like the amount of times where people have questioned, yeah, like my authority, or like questioned any advice I've given them. And it's crazy because as much as like I think some men will sort of act like it's not to do with gender or anything like that. I
Yeah.
think that it 100% is. I think it's like internalized misogyny that they have. And I think that, you know, if it was coming from a man, they would take it more seriously.
Yeah, I think so.
Um, so
I
yeah,
think
I've definitely experienced that on quite a severe level. And like exactly what you said, I think it's a confidence issue. Like, yeah, I've definitely been afraid to, yeah, like exert myself. And like, you know, I've been pulled up like to if we're gonna, you know, being brutally honest, I've been like questioned about being spiky or, you know, a little bit aggressive, a little bit cutthroat. And I'm like, that's just like normal. Like surely I'm allowed to be a bit like passionate and, you know, a bit like intense. And, you know, people are like people piss me off sometimes, that people piss everyone off, you know. But then when a man is telling you, you know, oh, like you're too much, like you're too aggressive, and you know, this is not going to do well for you, and you know, it's too much for us, and we don't, you know, we don't want to work with you because of it and stuff like that. Yeah, that's when you're a bit like, so okay, so I have to sit here quietly and, you know, and be polite and pretty and accept what you're saying to me, just because, you know, if I pipe up and I get a bit aggressive and passionate about it, apparently that's, you know, that's too spiky. So yeah, it's definitely a confidence issue as well. Like sometimes you just stay quiet just to appease men and appease, like, you know, the people that are higher up, and which are, yeah, by the sounds of it at the moment, obviously guys. So
has that affected your confidence and your ability to do your work sometimes? Would you say it's hindered?
100%, 100%. Like literally, I'm kind of struggling again. Like I'm struggling with it right now. Like I suffer from quite bad anxiety, and I get it when I feel like I have to question my own. I start questioning myself, you know,
Yeah.
because someone else has told me I'm this and I'm that, and you know, and like I'm not doing this right, or I'm not doing this right. I then start to question my own beliefs in myself. Um, and it is that I started to feel really lost, and I started to feel like I had to literally sit on Google. I didn't do it that long ago. I sat on Google and I searched for like yeah, like groups for specifically for like women and non-binary people that can like help, you know, like come together, because I genuinely didn't know what to do, and I felt so lost and alone, and I just wanted to know that there were other women like experiencing what I was experiencing, which I know there are, but I didn't know like how to find them or where they were.
I think
um
you make actually, it's more about getting the voices out there, because there are places around. It's just people need to find out where are they.
exactly, and that's the thing. If it, if it's everything sort of being controlled by people that aren't of one of those groups, like, it's where, how do we find it? Like, in the end, like, it actually come up on I think it did come up on like an NME group, like an NME article, maybe. I don't know if it was that big. It might have been something else. But it came up on an article, and they actually listed, I think it was like 10 like women run like charities, and like queer charity, queer groups and like communities and stuff like that. But that was the only article I saw on it. So I was just like, oh my God, like, so I was clicking them, seeing if any of them were like, part of sort of what could help me and what I was looking for. And I actually did sign up to one. It was the She Said So.
Yeah.
um yeah, so I signed up, and I was just like, it's just nice, like, even if you're just posting in there about like, oh, like, let's meet up, or I've got this opportunity, and I think it's literally just about building other people up, and like, finding that community and finding your sense of self again. Because yeah, it 100% affects my mental health, and when I can actively see myself getting pushed down by people, like by men at the top, basically.
And you feel isolated as well at times. Like, I've experienced that too. Sometimes I want to find people that have experienced what I've experienced, that can relate to where I come from. And I
Totally.
think, some places, like you said, it'd be great if we could see more of that spread across the community, these hubs that people could link up with each other and share their views. And I know there's the F list,
Yeah.
a member of now, and they're really, really great. And it's really exciting to be part of them, because I want to kind of help promote the work they do and do more research around that.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
a really good
definitely.
point you make, actually. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Kirsty.
Okay.
So what are your thoughts and feelings on equality and diversity and inclusion in the music industry at the moment? What could we see?
I think I mean, it's definitely not as good as it could be, right? Like, there's still a long way to go. I think it's people sort of, there's more being done, but
Yeah,
I just don't think it's enough.
yeah,
It's that on top of all the other issues that we're also having to deal with at the same time. So it's one of those. It's like stuff like that gets pushed aside when they're not like, the government isn't giving the like music and culture and the arts sector any money, any funding. Our live sector's going to shit because like venues are getting shut down and all that sort of thing. Like, there's so many issues that then stuff that's super, super important, like diversity and inclusion, is then getting pushed to one side. So yeah, it's again, I think it's been one of those very up and down journeys. Like, you start to feel, I think, that things are happening, and these movements are happening, like, especially in lockdown, like there was like a resurgence of like the Black Lives Matter movement, and and stuff like that, and you feel like, yeah, like you really want to be part of it, and things are happening, and then all of a sudden it just starts to feel like it dwindles. And then you're like, okay, what's happened, like, so it's, yeah, it's one of those. I think, I don't think companies and the people at the top are doing enough. And when I've done studies on it, I did a study actually in when I did my master's about like sexual assault in sexual assault and harassment in the music industry, and especially in like live events and stuff. And it came to pass, like, from my research and from talking to people, there was like, it was literally it. I think it ended up being like over 80% or something of people I spoke to had all had a horrible experience like that, and didn't do any, like, they couldn't do anything about it. They hadn't spoken about it. Like, they didn't feel like they had anywhere to go. And that's the thing. I think the people with the power at the top are not providing those safe spaces, and they're not providing those equal opportunity spaces, or that voices, and like you say, they're not letting like these voices be heard. And for me, it's about lifting those voices up, because again, I know I've got privilege, like, you know, yes, I'm a woman, but you know, it's I still account myself as a privileged like white woman, basically. So it's like I want to also be able to provide that space and those opportunities for other people that aren't as privileged as myself. So it's I think it's a there's many layers to it, and obviously, you know, like it's hard to sort of break down. I very much believe in a lot of it will start at grassroots level. I think a lot of it will start at like primary school, teaching like young boys to teaching young boys to not be misogynistic, basically, and you know, to not be like anti-queer or anti like anything. So yeah, I think that's very much like where things are going to start. But again, it's going to count on like our government giving the funding to education, and you know, and providing those parts of the curriculum and stuff where, you know, where that gets taught. You know, because it's again like drawing back on that research I did, like I think the problem with that is that the people that had been like sexually assaulted or sexually harassed, they didn't know what consent was. And then I admitted myself, I don't think I learned what consent was until like scarily my late 20s, you know, and I'm 32 now. So it's stuff like that. It's like, you know, we should be getting taught all of everything, like all this, you know, everything to do with like equality and inclusivity, all at that young age. And we're just not being taught that, you know, so it feels like it then just gets, you know, dragged up through the system and through the you know, the ages. And yeah, and I think that's definitely where the problem begins.
Thank you for sharing that with us. A very interesting point. Thank you. So the next question would be, I have to look on this, do you think cultural and age differences affect the progress of where we're going and how we're getting there?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, definitely. I think yeah, again, it's about opportunity, isn't it? I think like there's so many like disparities and so many like unequal like opportunities within our society. It's I mean, I kind of touched on it before. It's definitely about, you know, again, like grassroots levels and the fact that people aren't being given equal opportunity based on like the color, or you know, they're like whatever, like their ability and everything like that. So it's definitely, I think it's about raising the right voices and letting those be heard. And I just don't think that's being done as well as it can be. Like it's again, we have those moments, like, you know, you have like someone like super important, like speaking at an event or like headlining a festival, or you know, speaking out and like, you know, for a moment you're like, yeah, this is great, you know, like Dave or Stormzy or whatever, you hear those voices being heard, and they're shouting about some really important topics on a worldwide stage. And then I just think that the sort of, you know, the energy behind that then just sort of gets lost, and it gets lost because there's other, because again, like because of who's in power, and you know, and our government sort of covers that sort of stuff up, and you know, and then there's all this drama and yeah, everyone sort of forgets about it. And again, like with major labels, you know, that it's a huge problem, like the fact that, you know, like you say, there's like one person that was like an exec that's like a woman, and that's crazy to me.
People as well, do you think the executives, because they're a lot older, they're a lot less accepting?
Oh, totally, yeah. Yeah, it's an old white boys club. That's the thing, and it's horrible to say, and it's, you know, like I say, it has improved somewhat, I'm sure, but it's, to me, it still feels like an old white boys club. Like, you know, no matter what company you look at, it's like, yeah, you've got like women and non-binary people and like, you know, different abilities and everything, like at this sort of level, but then at this level it's always like the old white guy, you know, that's still the director or whatever. And it's definitely like, you kind of feel like, oh, are we just a bit of a token, like, you know, have they just sort of you know, stuck us in there because they want, they want their stats to look good and whatever. But yeah, definitely age 100% has something to do with it. Like, you know, again, like 32, that isn't old, like, but I genuinely, in the music industry, I feel old, and I feel like I get judged by older men for being that age. Like, you know, it's, again, it's like, it's so many things to unpack and everything as well. But you know, women get treated differently, like, considering, you know, whether they're younger or older, like, and it, you know, if you're past a certain age as a woman, like, you then get, like, like, your old hat, like, they don't want you anymore, you're not fresh. And, you know, and I think that's a lot of to do with the fact that these men at the top think that they control younger women like a bit easier. You know, I think they're like, oh well, we've got this opportunity for you because, like, you're young and fresh, and we can break you down still. But, you know, someone who's a little bit older and, like, maybe in their 30s and stuff, like, you know, again, we're not getting handed opportunities because it's just, you know, it's that's definitely got something to do with it. Culture wise, I think it's very much still again, like, I come from a working class background, and like, I've never been loaded. I've never had, like, that, you know, that much money to go and buy, you know, my way into things. And I think, again, it's very much like, if you're sort of rich and private schooled and whatever, you're getting these opportunities given to you, like, but just because you can pay for it, basically. Like, you can pay for these, like, amazing studios and these amazing producers.
Someone in the right place that can get
Totally,
you.
totally. So yeah, I definitely think culture and age and yeah, like, the sort of class war, like, always has something to do with it, for sure.
Oh, thanks so much, Kirsty. This has been such an inspirational, and I've learned so much from your chat today. It's been great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
You're
much.
inspirational. You, honestly, thank you for inviting me to chat. It's been awesome.
Have you, like, kind of ever experienced discrimination and sexism, like you said? Like, how's, you know, when you experience that, like, how
Mm.
often do you experience it? Do you experience it all the time?
Um, do you know, yeah, yes and no, because I think there's, I think I would say all the time, because I think that every man has a sort of level of internalized misogyny, whether they realize it or not. So I would say that, you know, every day there's always something, like, whether it's, like, big or little.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem, is that I don't think I've experienced every day very like, overtly and obviously, but I've definitely experienced something quite sinister every day. Like, there'll always be something little, whether it's a comment, or, you know, the way someone speaks to you, or, like, something someone does, or that, and you just think, like, you know, even, like, lineups, like, for example, like, gig lineups, every day I see these all white male band lineups going up, and I'm like, are you joking? And, like, someone's, like, a man will then sit there and they'll say, oh yeah, but do you know how hard it is to book like, women and non-binary and people of color and stuff like that? And I'm like, dude, it's not, because they're there, right? Like, they're there and they exist, but they're just not being found, and they're not being given the opportunities, they're not being raised on these platforms. So, like, don't give me that bullshit that, like, it's so hard to, like, book them, and, or they're busy, or, you know, there's just not enough of them. Like, you know, there is enough of them, you're not giving, you know, you're not doing anything to help. So yeah, I'd say every day there's something like that will happen, and it grinds you down, for sure, and it definitely makes you think, like, what more can I be doing? You know, which is, again, why I said, like, when I started my own sort of management and development company, like, I definitely want to work with people, you know, that aren't white men, basically.
Straight away, because we met at the Great Escape last year, didn't we? So, and we
Exactly.
have the same values and the same goals, and that's why we've always kept
Sure.
in touch. And
Yeah.
I've always thought, what a lovely woman that you are, and, you know, you've
Oh,
been
thank
so
you.
inspirational. And thank you for coming along. Like,
Thank you.
where can people find you if they want to get in touch, if they want to look for you or contact you for some work? How would they find you?
Yeah, for sure. Like, so I'm on LinkedIn, so Kirsty Macgregor on LinkedIn, or my Instagram is kmac0305. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how easy that is to remember,
I'll
but
put it in the
yeah,
description
wicked.
below anyway.
Yeah, I would love to people to reach out and, like, chat, and you know, like you say, build these communities and have these spaces where we can all get together and just like, yeah, you know, chat about things and share our experiences and provide opportunities for each other like that. Yeah, that's wicked.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time
Oh,
today.
thank you. You're awesome. I'm so glad. Yeah, this is amazing that you're doing this. Like, it's wicked.
Thank you.